was the third time that I had come to sit at the end of this small private pier in the darkness. Twice before this night, my acquaintances, the Asquiths, had held their charity galas up at the big house, the Victorian splendor of this 3-story mansion overlooking its poor relation, the bayou below them. I'd sat at this same spot with old friends and even older lovers, watching riverboats glide by as fish scurried into the reeds to take shelter from their assault. The Asquiths were meaningless to me. I didn't care about their charities or their galas or their good name. But whenever the invitation came to visit the big house, I never refused. I couldn't resist the chance to sneak down to the pier when the evening was drawing to a close. I think she must have been attracted by the music. That sound of Lady Asquith's preferred jazz band stomping out that eclectic mix of notes. At the start of the night, they were always this wild explosion of sound, and it slowly dipped into a lazy, often mournful serenade as the hours of darkness crept by. It was that mournful part that drew her to the surface of the water, the vision I'd seen for the last 2 nights that I'd been here. Tonight, I felt certain that she would come again, the lines of hairs on the back of my neck standing rigid even as I settled on the damp wood and hung my legs over the side. My polished black shoes were inches away from the babbling water below. I saw my reflection in the dark green water as I waited for her to come. My gray suit was shining like the silver moon above. Back at the big house, the band had stepped up for slow dance. Tenor saxophone ringing out over the open conservatory doors, carrying this rich melody over the breeze that rustled the pondweed, sent a chill through my bones. I stretched back and leant on my flattened palms, looking up to the circular moon as a sliver of cloud cut through its center, casting a thick line of shadow on the flowing river ahead. When my eyes came back to the water, she was there. At first, only her eyes and the crown of her head were visible above the water's surface. She bobbed like an alligator, watching me with those deep, brown orbs, crystalline jewels plaited into her hair. Beautiful curls, as it always was. My silvery suit was something new to her, it seemed. She swayed in the water as she observed the whole of me from head to toe. Then, with this impossible gliding motion, she rose from the depths of the murky fluid. She stood flat on the surface of the river, looking dry as a bone. Her sleek gown, that same shimmering shade as the moon in the water, fell about her perfect frame in elegant swathes. She floated like a perfect paper lantern, illuminated like someone had struck a match inside her. I wanted to catch her before she could fly away into the air. She approached me over the water, with small steps and pointed toes, her face this inviting mixture of sorrow and desire. She always looked as though she needed me, as if I was the very reason that she appeared. I didn't know how many other men had sat where I had sat, but she let those dark eyes of hers claim me. I didn't care. The moment her hand reached out for mine, I responded, leaning forward eagerly to accept her touch. Fingers of ice entwined with mine, reminding me that she couldn't possibly be an apparition. She was as solid as anyone I'd ever known. Solid to touch, to see, to smell. The scent of candles burning filled my lungs, and I leapt from the pier. Where moments before I might have plunged into the midnight waters, now my feet hovered above them by her command. A silver mist rose about our feet to conceal the air on which we stood, extending out into the wide river as she led me further from the safety of the pier. I took her other arm, set it to my shoulder. I was familiar with the dance that we'd shared in the dark moments here before. She smiled, but did not speak. Her full lips parted a touch. Her heart-shaped face was tilted as she glanced over my shoulder up to the big house, exhaling a sigh. I followed her gaze to the brightly lit mansion, our cheeks brushing together as I led her forward in a waltz. A history book from the town hall had provided me with all of the answers that I sought. She was what the locals called Grey Lady Grey. She was a slave girl that had turned countess, married to the owner of the big house back in 1818. He had fallen in love with her against every restriction. He thought that he'd elevated her from humble roots, but it was into a role that she was never meant to have. At first, the girl had thought herself lucky, but the reality of being caught between these two worlds was quick to set in. No longer accepted by her own people, nor by the new acquaintances of her besotted beau, Lady Grey ran from her home in the midnight hour, along the rushes to find her way back. Now, a century later, she wandered the waters of the bayou, where she had fallen in and drowned. I wouldn't have thought it possible if I hadn't already seen it to be true. When we danced in the moonlight mist, I felt her breathing against my neck, this sweet, warm vapor dampening my skin. The scent of deep, red wine followed us, and it mingled with the candle smoke. I spun her in my arms, pulled her close. Her hands came to rest about my neck, toying with the back of my tie, and she smiled once more. "Why won't you talk to me?" I asked her, like I'd asked so often on these last few nights. She put a dark finger to my lips, shaking her curls to and fro. The mist grew higher, hiding our bodies up to the hip as she pulled me back into another rotation of the dance. The old histories spoke of her dancing as the stuff of legend. They painted her as this lonely ballerina that was spotted by drunkards and madmen on their way home from the bayou. Well, I was pretty sure that I was neither of those things. She didn't look all that lonely in my arms. Aside from those glances that she sometimes gave the grand house that overlooked our little rendezvous, her lips were full of joy, curved, full, tempting, too. The first time that she had claimed me for dancing, I was too astounded to do much else, captivated by her perfect, ethereal sway. The second time, I had studied her face, memorizing every detail, and then I'd rushed to the town hall where I discovered her history. This time I knew who she was, knew that she could not be here, could not be causing this chill in my body as her lithe torso brushed up against mine, her curving lips mere inches from my own. "Say something," I pleaded. "At least give me your name." She shook her head, the silver wisps of fabric that clung to her shoulders slipping lower, revealing yet more of her beautiful skin. We pivoted in an arc that took our feet into the center of the floating river, all the while her deep eyes locked with mine. "I know who you are," I whispered over the babbling waters. "I know that you want to go home." The beauty gazed at the big house down to the river's path, the reedy swamp that led to the clearings where the slaves of 100 years ago had made their dwellings. She put her head down on my shoulder, clasping me until a pin could hardly pass between our bodies. This tiny sob escaped her lips. She could speak, then she chose not to. Her cry was enough for me to understand her. I held her tightly, our feet keeping step with the ghost of a melody. As I let one hand rise out of place to stroke her ringlets, they were soft, so very real beneath my fingertips. "I'd take you home with me, sweetheart, if I could." No sooner the words escaped me than she pulled back her head, her eyes glowing silver as they caught the reflection of the moon. She shook her head again, but this time much faster, more eager somehow. Her elbows hooked around my neck, and she hugged my face close, a sweet aroma tempting me nearer to her lips. I kissed her without delay, and I felt her cold skin, the rush of an air that swept around us and tousled my suit at the impact. Lingering moments passed as I stayed locked in her embrace, never wanting the moment to vanish, as I knew that she herself soon would. She had never stayed this long before. Never let me reach the end of the dance, or this moment that I had wanted from the instant I beheld her. When she pulled her lips away, I opened my eyes to a new vista. A faint light surrounded us, and the world had become a greenish-blue blur the farther I tried to see into the distance. The bubble of air that we were bathed in had slowed my realization that she had taken me under the water with her. When I looked upwards, I could just about make out the moon, a circle so much smaller than it had been just moments ago. I held onto her waist tightly, studying her strange, smiling face. Or maybe you want to take me home with you? I asked, my lips trembling. Her smile faded slowly, corners of her lips turning down. I have no home. She let out a sigh, and then she was nothing once more. The water hit me like a frozen gust of wind, smashing into my body from all sides where the protective layer of the air had been a moment ago. I scrambled in the murky darkness, my eyes stinging as I looked for the side of the moon. But I was a long way down, kicking, paddling violently, my lungs burning with the strain of holding back this torrent of fetid water that was waiting to devour me. I emerged with an inhuman gasp in the river, forcing my way upstream, back towards the pier. The silver smoke that had lit our dance floor was gone. By the time I reached the wet wood of the little jetty, the moon had clouded over, deserted me too. As the sound of my own breathing slowed to a more normal rate, I noticed that silence had fallen upon the big house too. The music had stopped. I climbed up onto the pier in my soaked suit, now dull as charcoal where the water had seeped in and destroyed the delicate threads. My tie was missing from my damp neck. When I turned back to the water, I could see it floating some way off by a patch of reeds, but within seconds a hand slunk out of the water, grasped it with his long, elegant fingers, pulling it down into the darkness below. I stepped back a few paces, listening to my own damp feet squelch along the tired wood. I watched for any sign that she might still be there, still be nearby. When none came, I exhaled a nervous breath, turning on shaking legs to return some semblance of normality. Will you come again tomorrow night? Her voice echoed in the water, babbling with every ripple of the river behind me. I did not look back. I didn't need to. She already knew the answer. Hey everybody, it's me, Mr. Breakdown, and you've just finished watching The Ghost of a Melody, which is a little less horror and a little more romance, depending on how you look at it, but I thought it was really cool to bring you this kind of like 1920s, almost silent movie-esque storytelling thing. I hope you really enjoyed it, and if you did, and you liked some of this like creepy, ghostly looks and the filmic effects that were used in that particular video, I kind of explained it all on my Twitch stream whilst I was making it, which was actually a couple of weeks ago for this one, but we're doing all kinds of fun things over there because I'm learning to experiment with all different makeup looks and like lighting effects and, you know, trying out different camera trickery and stuff. It's all a big experimentation, and I'm learning along, and people are giving me advice on stream about different things and telling me whether the looks are working out. It's a wonderful interactive experience, so if you're looking for more behind the scenes on these stories that you're enjoying, I strongly encourage you to go and follow my Twitch right over there. If you're enjoying the stories in general and you like what I do and you want to support what I'm doing here on YouTube, then you could always join my Patreon, which is a small monthly fee where you get a bunch of full-length shows and concerts that are all available on demand on there, plus loads of behind the scenes and extra stuff that's getting bigger and bigger every month, basically. Loads of extra stuff happening over there. If not, there's always the holy trinity of things that you can do right here on YouTube and over on my Instagram, which is like, comment, and follow, because those things are absolutely free to do. They're no cost to you, but they make a big, big difference to me. Thank you for everybody that's doing so consistently every week. I love watching this channel grow. I can't wait to see what more we can do and how many more stories I can bring you, MBD style. I'll see you next time.